Good morning, David.
Good morning, Dr. Arya. I see I interrupted your cup of coffee this morning.
You did, but that's all right. Forgiveness is in the air this morning.
What time did you get up this morning?
We got up at 4 this morning, so
Okay. All right.
and,
Sometimes I
and
only put a camera
yesterday
in
and
your house.
day before.
Right. That's interesting because we're talking about sleep. Okay, so good. So this is again dynamic healing moments, and the reason why we call it dynamic, and I'll say this over and over again, is that the way the body stays alive, you process your environment or circumstances and stresses with your nervous system, and then you have a physiological state determined by the interaction. So it's a dynamic interaction between your environment and who you are that determines your physiological state, and you want your physiological state to be sort of neutral or safe most of the time. We are
Mhm.
not intended to be in sustained threat physiology. So what we're talking about today is sleep, which is a big deal. And we know lack of sleep causes lots of problems, but there's a step earlier. Why are you not sleeping? And today we're talking about what's called adverse childhood experiences. We're talking about the nervous system itself. And I'm going to do an orthopedic explanation, and Dr. Arya will give the real explanation of what's going on. But I heard about ACEs for years, and my personal ACE score is very high. And so only a third of Americans have an ACE score of 0, and it stands for adverse childhood experiences. It's a 0 to 10 scale, measuring things like parent in prison, parent on drugs, divorce, physical, sexual abuse and neglect, et cetera. So it's a score, it's a number.
Yeah,
And the number correlates extremely high with poor health. But what really escaped me for years is why. But it's the way you're programmed. So if you're programming
right.
that's not safe when you're young, it's not going to be safe when you're older. So you have a hypervigilant nervous system, so it takes less stress to create this physiological response. So what we're talking about today is that we have a hyperactive nervous system and it's associated with anxiety, depression, and lack of sleep. So you can do lots of things for sleep, but if your nervous system is so hypervigilant, it's a lot harder to make these things work. And again, after 15 years, I last night still struggle with sleep. It's a tough deal. So, Dr. Arya, how do we get some better sleep?
Well, lots of sessions with me. No, I'm kidding. But on a serious note here, I really like how you highlighted. One of the things that David and I that wish to let you know, those of you listening here and those of you know of people who struggle with sleep, let's just pause it for a second. All too often, we make this so much about psychological reasons why we're not able to sleep. The psychological reasons are basically the mental scripts we kind of get caught up on. But those mental scripts do not come about by itself. It comes about when the brain and the body, the nervous system says, hey, I sense something dangerous. And then we hear this inner narratives. So your physiological states determines your psychological states, right? And so with that said, David talked about ACEs. ACEs can be grouped into 3 categories. David, I'm sure you know this as you went over a myriad of things. It's first category is under abuse, like physical, emotional, those kinds of things. The second category is neglect, like physical and emotional neglect. And then the third category, besides abuse, neglect, is household dysfunction, like witnessing the incarceration of someone, domestic violence, those kind of things, arguments, chaotic households, those 3 categories. Why are we spending time talking about this? Because it is not your fault in some sense that your nervous system has become so protective and vigilant. The part that we get to own, David, I think we can say this. We've talked about this. You mentioned about cell phones and watching TV before bed. Those things we are accountable for. And what we're accountable for is not learning skills to unhook from those narratives. David, back at you.
Well, you're right. And again, is this a programming problem? And so, again, the link between psychology and physiology is really key. But the bottom line is if your physiology is fired up, you're full of adrenaline, cortisol, and hyper alert, how
Yeah.
are you going to fall asleep? So again, the other things we talked about help calm that down. But if you're still trained to be hypervigilant, it's a problem. The other reason to consider working on ACEs, and this does take professional help. This is one step well beyond me. This is what Dr. Arya does, is that you're not analyzing the past to fix it. You literally have to rebuild your brain. And we used the analogy several times, and we'll use it again about a feral cat compared to a domestic cat, where this feral cat's hypervigilant, and it should be because it's dangerous out there. Where my domestic cat is completely spoiled. She's incredibly safe when she's around us. and you put her in the wild, she's appropriately alert, but she's not alert all the time. So
Yeah.
a feral cat can't differentiate anymore. So if you come from a chaotic background, your brain, I'll just talk about myself as an example, you're hypervigilant all the time. And I use that term actually in college, but I didn't know why or what that meant or the implications. Anyway, bottom line is my entire lifetime has been a challenge for sleep. Talk therapy alone actually made it worse. So let's, we talk about, am I correct in thinking that with ACE trauma, it's more of a matter of rebuilding your nervous system and teaching your brain to feel safe? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's an excellent and fair statement, and that's backed by science. What everyone needs to know is we're accountable to how we relate to those difficult moments, not for when it shows up. So let me state that one more time. We've said this last week. You're responsible to your mind and body, which means that when stuff shows up, you're responsible for it. So when your mind is spinning, your body's reacting, you get to show up. Think of your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations as children. It's your responsibility. But when something shows up, like, why am I feeling so anxious in bed? Why am I thinking this? That is not your fault. That's the nervous system. So you don't have control over that. So
Right.
push that aside. So the second thing is get into trauma-based therapy. Trauma-based. Not all therapists and psychologists are created alike, much like doctors. We have a great doctor here who's compassionate and actually a funny guy. But David, we'll talk to you later about that.
That's debatable, but we'll take it.
That's debatable, yes. Please
Right.
make sure you do talk to someone, because one of the things because a trained therapist and psychologist, it's really important for you to understand that I hammer home this. There needs to be a somatic-based treatment. If the therapist you're talking to is oblivious to that, they may be not a good fit for trauma-based therapies. Trauma and chronic pain have an overlap in brain systems.
Right.
So that can sometimes impact sleep independent. So if you're saying is, no, I don't think I have any trauma, but I have chronic pain that wakes me up, it's the same network. So the point here is exercising is a very good antidepressant and sleep medication. Get some movement, learn breath work, learn yoga, Tai Chi, any body-based therapies will help. David?
Well, but let me just emphasize something that's really critical. So, us in psychotherapy for 13 years, which I'm for. I'm not against it.
Mhm.
Talk therapy alone to analyze your past actually makes it stronger because you're reinforcing it. What somatic therapy does, it allows you to feel uncomfortable and then feel safe with those uncomfortable feelings. It's a completely different ballgame. So when I get into that mode, things started to change dramatically. Both my physical symptoms, mental symptoms, things started to change. So yeah, no, it's a huge difference. And I don't know what percent of therapists, Les, do you think do somatic type therapy?
Well, because it's funny because I'm teaching a trauma class with therapists this month, and a lot of them don't quite understand that, because we have to train them. When I was trained, again, we were trained to do cognitive behavioral therapy stuff all up here, and so, but with chronic pain and insomnia and all the other stuff, the therapist needs to be skilled enough to come back home to your home. I'll give you an example. When you have a difficult thought in your body, like I can't seem to sleep, take that thought, locate it where in the body, and then once you notice it, you can touch it or breathe from it and stay focused on it. When you stay focused on something somatically, you learn to desensitize it. It's almost like you're soothing a child. And if you actually rub your chest or even tap yourself as you fell asleep, you will drift off into sleep. So doing body work is very important with breath work.
So this morning, as far as tips, this is a little different, I think, because it is a big deal, the trauma. You're not going to run from it, really. And so I don't know, I think your tip of the day about feeling it in your body is critical. Any other sort of short-term thoughts for the day as far as trauma work?
I do. Do you mind if I give one of my? You may think it's funny, and the audience may go, "Oh, that's really cute," but it's not. This is you gotta try it. So don't knock it till you try.
I won't think it's cute.
David, you're gonna smile already. I can see it's coming. All right, folks. Let me just kind of say this. Besides David teasing me already here. So listen, tonight, take your feet and leave at least both of them out. Have at least one foot hanging out away from the sheets. So if you're usually tucking your feet inside your sheets or your comforter, try this tonight. leave both feet. So just pull your covers and let your toes be exposed, because when your toes are cooler, your body starts to regulate better. If you don't want, if you're afraid that a boogeyman will come, and leave one feet.
Okay, so you're saying leave both my feet out the end of the covers.
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you
If
know in the
you
morning.
can, and about one in and one out. So
I have a better idea for a sleep aid. I'm going to make a tape of me trying to tell jokes.
oh no,
You
yeah.
can play that tape and it'll just put you right to
David,
sleep.
David, we don't want to put the 11th category of trauma. We have 10 categories of ACEs. We don't need the 11th one,
Ooh,
David.
that one hurt. That one hurt a little bit. You're on fire. Oh my God. All right, I give up. You win this battle. All right, but you haven't won the war yet. Anyway, all right, I will see you in the morning. And again, this is Dynamic Healing Moments with Dr. Les Aria and David Hanscom. And Dr. Aria can be found on remedypain.co, and I can be found on the dlcjourney.com. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.